know that they are not delivering for the Australian people.
Order. I call the Minister for Urban Infrastructure.
Well, thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Well, is there a more depressing job than being Labor's Shadow Minister for Communications, trying to defend Labor's disastrous record of NBN incompetence, trying to distract people from the relentless and ever-increasing NBN rollout? Now, the member for Blaxland dutifully performed this thankless task for 3 years, trying to be continually gloomy as the light of broadband availability shone ever more brightly across the land. On the 17th of September 2015, on the 17th of September 2015, he brought forward a matter of public importance debate, quotes the Prime Minister's mismanagement of the NBN. At that time, there were 1,291,635 premises that were able to connect. He had another go on the 21st of October 2015. Quotes the Prime Minister's second-rate NBN was the topic of the MBI that he brought forward then, Mr Deputy Speaker. At that time, 1,374,408 premises able to connect. He didn't give up. He was persistent, even in the face of the facts. On the 10th of February 2016, he brought forward yet another MPI, quotes the Prime Minister's failing Australians with his second-rate NBN, close quotes. Again, the member for Blaxland determinedly running the ideological line in the face of all the evidence, because by that point, Mr Deputy Speaker, the number of premises that could connect was 1,719,122. And you'll note, as each MPI comes past, the number of premises has increased by many thousands. So by the 3rd of May 2016, there was the dutiful old member for Blaxland still trying to ignore the ever-better story in the NBN, still trying to tell a very different story, and he brought forward yet another MPI. And then his topic, Mr Deputy Speaker, was the government's failure to deliver on the NBN for Australians. Now, at that point, there were 2,428,606 premises which were able to connect. Now, the member for Blaxland naturally couldn't wait to get this smelly dead cat of a shadow portfolio off of his shoulders, and finally he's escaped and he's happily off doing trade, investment and resources. And there's a new shadow minister, the member for Greenway, full of enthusiasm, full of clever new ideas, bold new ideas, like having an MPI on the topic, quotes, the government's second-rate NBN failing Australians, close quotes. Unfortunately, if we now look at the numbers, there's 3,207,727 premises able to connect, Mr Deputy Speaker. So the facts are that the number of premises which can connect is increasing rapidly and remorselessly, even as Labor, with their ideological blinkers, tries to cling to a set of facts which are utterly different to the reality. The reality, Mr Deputy Speaker, is this, that Labor has a hopeless track record on delivery, including a particularly hopeless track record on the delivery of the national broadband network. The reality is that the coalition came to government with a clear plan. We are executing on that plan, and we are getting the NBN rolled out. And the third reality is that Labor has no clue what they're going to do about the NBN, as we saw demonstrated comprehensively during the 2016 election. Let's remind ourselves, Mr Deputy Speaker, of Labor's record on delivery. Labor's record on delivery across a whole range of areas. How many naval ships or submarines did Labor order in government? None. Remember the member for Lilly. Let's talk about delivery. The member for Lilly coming into this place and saying the 4 years of surpluses I announced tonight. How many were delivered there? None. What did he deliver? Absolutely nothing. Remember Fuel Watch and Grocery Watch. What was delivered there? Nothing. Remember the housing insulation program. Sadly, we know what was delivered there, and that was tragic. Tragically, 4 young Australians died, hundreds of houses burnt because of this Labor Party's hopeless track record of delivery. Remember the mining tax, the tax that delivered no revenue. Remember the GP super clinics. At the 2010 election they promised there were going to be 28. There was 1 operational. Remember ending the double drop-off. In the 2007 election, they promised 260 childcare centres, the double drop-off, delivered by that public policy genius, the member for Adelaide. How many of those 260 had been built by February 2010? 3. This is the Labor Party with their track record of being utterly hopeless at delivery, and when it comes to the national broadband network, they were on form. They were on song. They produced a delivery stuff-up right up there with the levels of excellence in all of the other portfolios. Let's remember what they announced, what they promised in 2007, the 2007 election. There was going to be a fibre-to-the-node network to 98% of the population, and it was going to be delivered in partnership with the private sector. They couldn't deliver it. Abject, ignominious failure. So in April 2009, there was another plan. Fibre to the premises it was going to be, 12.2 million premises, but again, don't worry, there was going to be private sector involvement. Of course, by 2010, they discreetly slipped out the news that the private sector consultants they'd retained, McKinsey and KPMG, had said, actually no, the private sector won't be touching this with a barge pole, so the taxpayer is up for every dollar of the national broadband network. That's just one other example of Labor's delivery incompetence. And what did they actually deliver by September 2013 when they shuffled crippledy off the national stage and left us to pick up their mess? I will tell you what they had delivered. They had spent $6 billion and they had connected barely 50,000 premises. That is an ignominious record of incompetence, an ignominious record of hopelessness at delivery. We inherited, Mr Deputy Speaker, this chaotic, shambolic mess from this pack of incompetence on the other side, and we were charged with setting about and getting it under control. We established the competent management team. Bizarrely, there was virtually nobody on the NBN board under the previous government who actually had any familiarity with telecommunications. That's why we put in Ziggy Switkowski, former chief executive of Optus, former chief executive of Telstra, one of the most experienced telecommunications executives in Australia. We put in Bill Morrow as the chief executive, again a very experienced telecommunications executive. We developed a credible plan. Out of the shambles that we inherited, we developed the multi-technology mix to use the most cost-effective combination of fibre to the premises, fibre to the node and HFC cable, rolled out faster and more affordable, limiting public investment to $29.5 billion, and yet 90% of fixed-line premises will get 50 megabits per second. How have we operated once we came to government and once we've had control of NBN? There has been transparency. There has been weekly reporting on the rollout because we've got nothing to hide, unlike the previous government. And what we now see is that for 7 quarters in a row, the national broadband network has met its delivery targets and its financial targets. How many times did that happen under the previous Labor government? Not once. Not once. So this shambolic pack of people who are completely incompetent at delivery, the Labor Party, bizarrely keep coming back to this topic rather than slinking away from it in shame, which is what they frankly ought to be doing. And what did we see, Mr Deputy Speaker, what did we see during the 2016 election? After all kinds of chest-beating and bold promises on the NBN, they were going to fix it all, they were going to deliver fibre to the premises everywhere, it was going to be fantastic. What did they actually announce as a policy? Listen to this, Mr Deputy Speaker, because it's pretty good. It's pretty good. They were going to spend not $1 more than us, not $1 more than the coalition, but, here's the good bit, they were going to give 2 million more fibre to the premises homes connected. Little factoid for the Labor Party, the fibre to the premises home costs $4,400. These are numbers from the corporate plan. $4,400. Fibre to the node costs $2,300, roughly half. And yet our friends in the Labor Party, these people with this chaotic record of incompetence in the NBN, thought it was a good idea to tell the Australian people that their plan for the NBN in 2016 was to spend not $1 more, but you could have 2 million more fibre to the premises homes. It just doesn't work. It was a completely incredible, completely implausible policy because the frank reality was, as they effectively admitted by putting that policy out, they had no idea what to do. Thankfully for the Australian people, there is a government which is committed to the NBN, which is committed to delivering the NBN, which is populated by people who have serious business experience, which has put in place a competent management team, which has a credible plan and which is systematically rolling out the national broadband network. That is what we are doing. It's a story of success. There's a lot more to do. We're doing the job. We are delivering.